We just might very well be the actual crazy ones. I'm gonna leave it at that. We just might actually be the mad ones. Because literally, what's the difference? Sure, money was invested into the spectacle, right? What Marvel accomplished in this film is not something the average Joe can do because average Joe don't got influence and we don't got the money. We don't got the millions that you're pouring into these films or to the development of these films, right? So, but really, what's different than a 5 year old drawing a superhero maybe at the back of his homework sheet or maybe on a different piece of paper or whatever, and then me, let's say that book of his gains a lot of recognition, people enjoy his storytelling or whatever, and then afterwards, then I dress up as the fictionalized character on that, and through CGI, I make the powers or right the spectacle that was just initially just ink on the paper and just color and make it look realistic, right? While also giving fan service to the original comic book that I basically adapted my idea from. That's basically what movies are. And the problem is with that, nothing. It's just entertainment, or so they say. It's just entertainment. But what if I were to tell you there are people who invest more into this than God, invest more into this than God? Isn't that filling the biblical criteria for what the Bible basically calls idolatry? Let's be completely honest here, right? Ain't that basically what idolatry is? Now, people don't want to say that it's just entertainment, taking it too far. And I'm just here thinking, am I really? Because I at one point was naive minded, like many of these individuals are. I used to think that too. That I think people are kind of a bit stretched, but at the same time, didn't this not dominate my head, my thinking more than what was actually necessary? So, in other words, people really are truly in their hearts self-righteous because we like to condemn people who bow before idols. Those people give the one true God no attention, but they'll give works made by human hands. Is that not what we're doing? Just because we got the new technology, that doesn't overshadow uh, that the fact that the sin is the same. There was a dumb person, right, who was saying that who was trying to rationalize pornography ain't a sin because the Bible was written before the technology was made. So how is it a sin? I'm just here thinking that, dude, man's heart is inherently wicked. Granted, the technology we use to commit the sin might be different. That might change over time, but the sin itself is the same. So Jesus said it is sin. It is a man committing adultery, right? Something within those lines, of course. A man's committing adultery when he looks lustfully upon a woman. That should have automatically destroyed pornography, the pornography argument, because people like to justify sin by bringing up the newer aspects of it. Well, people in the day were doing this. I'm doing the sin is the same because the heart has not changed. Granted, we express our sins in different ways, but the overall sin is the same. This is why sin in the New Testament is more built around intention than it is really the act itself, which is where you get the overused Christian slogan, God knows my heart and stuff. Although they use that to justify sin. I'm gonna leave that. God knows my heart. Yeah, I'm sure he does. But that doesn't mean you should use it as an excuse to live under the the biblical principle, the biblical requirement, the standard. As I'm just gonna leave it at that. It's just a different way of saying he gets us, which was the slogan used at the end of the NFL ad, which is worldly Christianity. God, Satan wants you to think that. He wants you to think God knows you, so if he understands you, he made you. That means that regardless of what you, he loves you. He loves you. Nowhere in the Bible says he loves what you do. He loves you, the person, because God can separate his woefully and wonderfully made creation from what the enemy has corrupted us to do. He can separate us from that because he still loves us. He still sees us because he is our creation. He sees our child, but we do things that Satan's children do. So God divides us. He separates us from our actions. He's not gonna stop loving you because you turn on him, but let's just say he's gonna still discipline those who use sin as an excuse to continue. Because we're imperfect, but that doesn't mean you should be content being imperfect and enjoy doing this sin by saying that I can't stop sinning and stuff. No, secretly you can fight, at least try to fight it, but you're using it and essentially turning it into willful sin, meaning unrepentant sin. I do this willfully not because the flesh is weak, but just because I just choose to. It's just because it pleases me. That's who God is really against, because those people are abusing His grace. Those are the grace wasters, essentially. Should we, just because God died or God's Son died on the cross, should we continue to sin? God forbid. No, because now we give no deviation between right living and wrong living. Not only that, but we no longer are set apart. Sin should be by mistake, never by you choose to sin. That, like, we cause to be set apart. We don't do what the world does. Again, besides the point. But yeah, there are a lot of idolaters. Be like, no spiritual life, but 50 posters of pop culture fiction. They do it with celebrities. They do it with superheroes. They do it with TV show characters. Like, that's where we are. Like, idolatry, the sin, is the most dangerous sin. That's which why it's the first commandment in all the Bible God gives, other than don't eat the fruit. But the first commandment of the Mosaic law is don't have other gods before me. He's not talking about people like Krishna. He's not talking about people like Buddha. He's talking about literally don't have no gods before me. Because he's the one true God. So when he talks about don't have gods before me, he's talking about false gods, of course. And a false god is not literally anything made in the likeness of a god. A false god is simply just anything you call a god, or anything you treat with more value and more love and commitment than the true God. So when I say false, I'm not just talking about the literal false religious gods. No, I'm just talking about anything basic you treat more with God. That's idolatry. Narcissism is idolatry. Almost every sin is rooted in idolatry, the love of something more than God. Every sin is rooted in idolatry more than God. Anywho, now that we talked about that, that's the same spirit here. Satan is trying to raise up idols, a different idol for a different generation. Almost every fiction is rooted in idolatry. He wants you to marvel, right? He wants you to marvel after him, not after God. He wants you to it's literally called marvel. It's obvious. He wants you to admonish, not after the true God, but to marvel off after the beast. He don't want you to pray. He wants you to marvel after the spectacle because it gives them a false sense of power. And now that I look more about it, literally that's what's going to happen in the future. People are already hungering, looking for somebody to worship. Right now they got wrestlers, they got actors, they got Hugh Jackman and Ryan Reynolds. But they're going to really want a man to put in place of God. They're going to want an antichrist. Because they already denied the one true Christ. So they're going to need someone in his place. Because antichrist not only just means against Christ, that's what the anti-prefix means, but it can also mean a secondary connotation in place of. So if you're against Christ, you're going to have a different God by default. And that's going to be anything in place of him, right? So all these movies, when you think about it, in a grand scheme of things, especially superheroes, those people can be in other movies. I'm going to say again, predominantly superhero movies. They're preparing you for the coming of the false Messiah. They're preparing you for the coming of the so-called hero, right? And when he performs these miracles, many people, they're going to bow before it. They're going to think, this is the God, right? They're going to think, some Christians too, because some people don't want to have the spirit of God. They want to treat Christianity as religion, more than a relationship. They don't want to know God, but they want to be familiar with his rituals. They won't even know God's true nature, but they will know how to worship him, unquote. So when this false Christ comes, they're going to think this is the real deal. Even if they paid a modicum of more attention to scripture, they'll realize that Christ will come and every eye shall see him. If you got to be told where he is, that means he didn't come yet. God is God. He can be multiple places at once. He's not coming back as a human. He's coming back as God. He's going to come back as a judge. And if he came back as human, he can only be one place at one time. But Jesus said, don't listen to those who say, lo, Christ is here, or lo, Christ is there. He's in the dungeons. Oh, wait, he's in the wilderness. He's in the desert. No, don't listen to none of that. When he comes, you'll see him. So you're being told someone's the Christ. That's not the person, because all eyes all eyes shall close and all knees shall bow. That means everybody, regardless of location, will know, right? Because why would a God be a regional God? God is infinite, so he can be in multiple places at once. Likewise, his spirit is in multiple places at once. Believers scattered abroad are all united. He's talking about literally in terms of worldliness. No, you're united spiritually, not in terms of physicality and a proximity. No, but we got the same spirit, so we're united. That's what the brethren is. Not a family united by flesh and blood. A family united by the same spirit. A family united by having the same Lord and God. That's what Christianity is. That's what the way is, if you want to call it that. But there's going to be a false Christ that's coming, because they've already conditioned people through celebrityism, if that's a word, and all of this pop culture media to worship man in place of where God is, having people fall in love and basically become idol worshippers of these celebrities. Now you got the world marveling after Hugh Jackman and Ryan Reynolds. It's going to be for a short while, because Satan can eternalize nothing. Only God can make things last long. Because he himself is given a short time. He's under God's time clock. Whenever God ain't using him anymore, he's cast away into the dungeon. He's cast away into the pit. Every season, a new idol. Like movie after movie. Same story in the grand scheme of things. Movie after movie, same story. And sometimes I be thinking, does Marvel and DC basically share the same formula? Because we're told these are different companies, but in terms of mind frame, to me, they're basically the same. They are basically the same. I'm told they are different, but visually, I can think for myself and see that's not the case at all. Because I'm like, I really think y'all got the same formula, behind the scenes at least. The same business practice, the same scheme. Numbers are going down because we make terrible movies. Let's bring back a familiar face. Let's bring back an idol people can worship and use that as the bait for them to go back into our movies. Hugh Jackman. Man, why would anyone want to see Ezra Miller? Is that Michael Keaton? What happens in all these movies in terms of fiction? After these dudes fulfill their purpose, which was thrilling up the fan base, what do? They kill them off. Chris Evans, boom, dead. John Krasinski, boom, dead. Like there has to come a time y'all catch on to this. Are people slow now? I know they've been doing agendas to dumb down folks, but if y'all don't see it, you just want to be lost at this point. You've been truly living in a rock, because it's as obvious as daylight. It's as obvious as the sun. Literally, they kill off them because they're the bait. They want you to jump up your chairs at the theaters, point at the screen. They are bait. These dudes got no relevance to the plot. No relevance to even the movie at large. The actors themselves I'm talking about. But, they are the magnet. They are the people magnet. They drag them and fill theater seats with butts, basically. I'm not gonna say it, but it's obvious. They got the same formula. Either because one, they all got the same management team at the back, which all takes back to Satan, or because they're literally just still robbing each other of ideas.